Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Quick Tips with Sean. Today we're going to be talking about sidechain, both sidechain with gates and sidechain with compression, difference between the two, and best ways to use them. So today for my example, I want to be using Ableton for my DAW, and I want to be using both Ableton's compressor and Ableton's gate for the examples. But before I really dive in, I want to briefly go over what I believe sidechain is to kind of help you guys wrap your head around the whole idea. Essentially, sidechaining is when you take either like a gate or a compressor, anything that can use a sidechain, and that gate or compressor is going to be receiving signal from another track, and it's going to be performing based off of that track's signal. So I'm going to have a couple different examples for you guys. I'm not going to really go over how to use a compressor or a gate in this video. I'm just going to go over how to activate the sidechain and just a couple different examples of how to use it. So let's quickly go over some stuff. The first example I want to do is just how to pump with the compressor or how to duck with the compressor. Two different examples, and then I'll go over the gate stuff later on. So I have this track open right here, and this is kind of more of like, I mean, you can use this with any type of genre, but I know a lot of EDM tracks use this technique, and it's just for that pumpy feel, to really like get a rhythmic flow with the instruments and the kick and the snare and everything. So what I'm going to do is I have this mids group here with all my leads and everything. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a compressor on here. Boom. So after you have the compressor on here, what you want to do is just on the top left here, you have this disclosure triangle, okay? And you want to drop that down, and then you get the option to choose sidechain. And then you get a further option that says audio from. Okay, now this is a very important part because you want to pick the best that's going to work for you. For my example, I want to be using my sidechain track. So up here, you'll notice that I have like this track that I mute out, and it's just a MIDI track with the same kick that I'm using in the song that's audible, and I'm just, four on the floor. If I go back, I could choose like a kick or a clap, or I could like group a kick and the clap and choose that track as well. But the moment that I stop playing my kick and clap track, the compressor is going to stop pumping the sounds. But I can have this, what you would call a ghost track, and it's muted, so you're never going to hear it, but it's always going to be activating the pump. So even when the kick and the clap aren't audible, the sounds that are being sidechained to that pump are still going to be pumping. You know what I mean? So it's a really cool and more flexible way of doing this. So I'm going to choose that for my incoming signal. So this is the whole thing that I'm talking about, is that I'm not going to receive signal from the mids group, but I'm going to receiving signal from the sidechain or the ghost kick and clap track, okay? And then from there, it gets pretty easy. I mean, so let's put the cans on and listen to what we got. I got this little bounce track just for an example here. When it comes to the parameters, you don't really need to do too much. The magic just comes with the threshold. So you can see this constant boom, boom. That's just my kick and clap coming in. And as you bring it down, the compressor is going to compress every time that kick and clap come through. And the more you go down, the more you're going to get a pump sound. So without it, it sounds like this. Just there's no rhythm, it's more loud. With it, and you can obviously back up and really dial in the amount of pump that you would desire. And that's kind of it. And the next example I have for you guys, I mean, I just kind of talk about it. I don't really have an example here on this track, but basically it's ducking. So if you, it works really well with like broadcasting or anything like that, or just like you have a podcast, or even with like a vocal on top of some instruments and you want the vocal to shine a little bit more than the instruments at a certain part of the song, you can put the compression or the compressor on the instruments, and then you can put, for your audio from, you can put the vocal. So whenever the vocal happens, it's going to push down the instruments just a tad so that the vocal is going to be more audible. And you could do this for anything. I mean, it's huge in radio. I mean, like they have background music or whatever, and the dude's talking, and then, like the moment he starts talking, the music gets pushed down. And then right when he stops talking, the music comes back up, and it's just a way of like, making the listener listen to what they want you to listen to. So the next example I want to go over is with gating. Okay, so I have this example. There's two that I want to go over. The first one is going to be like triggering a kick and a sub to kind of make an 808. So what you would want to do is on your sub track, you would want to activate a gate. So let me just delete that guy and throw another one in here. So we got the gate, and then the same thing on the top left, you drop down the disclosure triangle, and what you're going to do is just activate the sidechain, and then you're going to have your audio from, in this case, I'm going to have it from kick, okay? Boom. Now every time the kick happens, let's play. We're going to have the signal come up, and that's the incoming signal from the kick. And if you could see from my subtrack, it's just one long MIDI. It's not happening every time the kick happens. It's only happening once, and then it just plays. Because I got it from the operator here, and I'm just, it's a sine wave, just a low octave, creating some sub. And so what I could do is I could really mess around with the release time. Open up the release, so when it hits, it triggers the sub, and then it kind of like fades away a little bit. And you can obviously really dial this in, add some saturator after it, add whatever you need to make that sub a lot more gritty and a lot more whatever. I mean, get it to that desirable sound that you wish for. And the parameters, just really mess around with the parameters. And that's a way to trigger an 808. My next example is to trigger something rhythmically. Okay, this is a technique that a lot of people use. Okay, so I got this operator here. Same thing. I'm gonna add a gate right in here, right before the compressor, so the compressor can pump and do its thing, and the gate can do what it needs to do. So for this example, I'm gonna have just like a random sound. It's gonna be a pretty shitty sound, but bear with me. It's just for the example. So let's do this, and then for my mids, I'm gonna mute the mids, but the signal is still gonna come in. So the mids are creating the rhythm of the track. So without the mids, I basically just have this shitty, right? But if I go on this gate, disclosure triangle, sidechain, audio from, I'm going to choose mids. Okay? Now what happens is that now it's going to trigger all the MIDI and all the rhythm that all those mid instruments are doing. And then you can dial in and really get your sound. And then the threshold. Now, again, the sound is really shitty, but you get the idea. Daft Punk and Random Access Memories did this a lot in their music. And I believe they did it a lot with hi-hats. So if they had like a crazy hi-hat roll or whatever kind of rhythmic hi-hat roll you wanted to do, and you muted that hi-hat track, and then on like a guitar track, you would put a gate, and then from the audio input, you would put the hats. And then now you have like one long guitar strum, but the guitar is not going to be audible like that whole time. It's only going to be audible when the hi-hats are coming through the gate to open up that guitar track, and now you get a really rhythmic sound. And it's a cool way of making risers. Some people call it like a trans gate. You might see it on some soft synths or whatever, but you could do it easily with Ableton's gate. So that's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you're able to use some of this stuff in your your future productions. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That'll really help me out. And all right, guys, I hope you have a great day.